Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about my reading roundup, what I read this week, things that happened in my music life, personal life, and also a little bit about a new segment that I debuted on the channel, so stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Again, I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. I'm a composer, now also booktuber. You can find my music in The Wheel of Time Season 2, His Dark Materials Season 3, and the official Brent Weeks companion album for his series Lightbringer that came out last year. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the books I read and kind of some of the things that happened this week, and leave it in the comments below and let me know kind of how your reading adventures went, because as I always like to say in pretty much every video, you know, it's always nice to have a dialogue with you all, and that's my favorite part of this channel. So definitely don't be shy, come say hi and leave it in the comments. And if you like this kind of video, please like and subscribe. I always like to keep this conversational and just kind of feel like we're all hanging out together, maybe sipping on a beverage and chatting about the books that we love. So if that's your jam, then please, like and subscribe, and it always helps out the channel. So without further ado, let's launch right into the book. So, had a pretty good, spectacular reading week, actually. I ended up I think I mentioned to you in a previous weekly update, I think in the last weekly update, I was only like 80 pages into John Gwynn's The Shadow of the Gods, book 1 of the Bloodsworn saga. So to say I made progress in this is an understatement, because I think in about 3-4 days, I finished the whole book. And I gotta say, it was fantastic. It was interesting, though, because, I've read now, this was my 7th John Gwynn book. I've read his Faithful and the Fallen series. Or sorry, 8th book. 8th John Gwynn book, because I'd read his 4-book series, The Faithful and the Fallen, and then the 3-book trilogy that comes afterwards, like the sequel trilogy called Of Blood and Bone. Loved them all. I thought they were all excellent. I thought this was a fantastic book, but I wouldn't say I was in love with the characters in the same way that The Faithful and the Fallen, the Banished Lands universe kind of grabbed me. And I don't know if it's just kind of like, when you find characters that you really just resonate with, everything else that comes afterwards starts to feel like a comparison. And, I try to think back on like what it was like experiencing those first couple of books, because I remember feeling like those characters took some time to grow on me as well. And I'm only book 1 into, a 3-book series, so I feel like, hey, maybe these will grow on me as well. But I will say that like when certain earth-shattering things happened, it was amazingly written. I think John Gwynn has gotten to be a much, even better writer in this particular book. Like his prose is just incredible. The way he describes the atmosphere of the locations and stuff is phenomenal. And his kind of use of like this Norse language. And I have no, prior understanding of that stuff, but it didn't seem hard to kind of pick up really quickly. So that's an art in itself. So as a writing style, I thought it was fantastic. I think the characters didn't necessarily gel with me, where those earth-shattering moments that happen in books, like you expect it to be more impactful because you really feel for the characters. Like that's the main reason why those things can be impactful in the first place. And I don't know that I necessarily felt that. Like if I was to rate that feeling in certain books in the Faithful and the Fallen series, I would probably get up to a 9 or 10 out of 10 during those big climactic moments. In this, I probably felt a 6 or 7. And, it's a setup book in a lot of ways, too. So I'm still very excited to get to the second book, The Hunger of the Gods, along with John from Disquiet and Dragons, who I'm linking down below. And I'm sure we'll probably have a lot to say together about this book and about the whole trilogy. So I don't know exactly how we're going to structure any live streams if we end up doing one for this series. But I got to still talk to him about that, and we'll kind of figure out something. And I'll leave it in the community post, as I always do, kind of plans on that front. So this has been great, though. Really enjoying the journey so far. The second book, I'm almost done, and I guess as you're watching this, because I filmed this on a Saturday, and as you're watching this, I'll probably be done with this particular book, and that is book 4 of The Expanse by James S.A. Corey, called Cibola Burn. Got this from the library, hence the shiny cover. Always a little too shiny for the camera sometimes. But I'm loving this so far. I gotta say, it's very different to the first 3 Expanse books. I think the first 3 were more of a contained story. And then certain things happen in the 3rd book that kind of open it up to a larger story, let's say, without spoiling anything. And I kind of like that evolution, actually. I feel it feels like a transitional book. So I don't necessarily know where it's going from here, but that's not a bad thing necessarily. I think like it's kind of nice to not know. And have your own theories of where this series is going to go from here. But I get the feeling by the time it reaches book 5, it's going to kind of go into a markedly different direction. So I'm excited to kind of check that out and see how that all kind of unfolds. But I'm really enjoying this. I've been reading like 150 pages a day. I'm just been going gangbusters on this, and I find, after some more dense fantasy, it's so much easier to read stuff like this, because for those of you who don't know, this is kind of like a space opera kind of a series, but it kind of becomes that as it evolves, because basically it's like set a couple hundred years in humanity's future. So we've already started to colonize planets in the solar system. Or moons and things like that. And, you kind of see the factions develop, the politics, and how, even though it's been a couple hundred years and we may have evolved technologically, we're still human beings at our core, and our biases and our prejudices and things like that are still there. They just manifest in different ways, right? Racism may not necessarily be a thing then, but there'll be something else, right? So it's always something. And so that's kind of maybe the quandary of being a human, and it kind of explores that, and I love that about this series. And so this book has been really fantastic so far. I highly recommend, if you haven't checked out the series. It's kind of got a heist feel to it too, so it's kind of really fast-paced. Love it. Really great. So I'm excited to kind of read more of The Expanse. I'm going to kind of read those as the months go by. I want to try to read book 5 in November, I think. So we'll see how that all goes. So that was kind of what I read. So what am I going to read this coming week? So I had mentioned in another video, which I'm going to talk a little bit about in a little bit, but I was kind of mentioning some of the books I'm going to be reading in October. And one of them was called The Har by David Sodergren. Now, I heard about this from 2 different booktubers, actually. John from Disquiet and Dragons, who's become a dear friend of mine, and then, of course, Cliff from Cliff's Dark Gems, who's also mentioned it, and an author that I should be exploring. So I'm really excited to check it out because, as I mentioned to you, I work on a lot of book adaptation space as a composer, and now more recently working in production as well. So it's been a fun adventure to explore, and being able to do my homework to read books by authors I don't know about. It's always nice to be able to know, like, oh, would this be something that could be adapted? It's always nice to kind of have the wheels turning as I read. So that's something I'm really excited about for this book. And I have kind of talked a little bit more about these books also in this particular October TBR video. So I'm just linking that up here so you can check that out if you want to. And you can kind of get more detailed explanations from them. But it's more of an atmospheric kind of a horror, and that kind of, in itself seems very interesting to me. So that's the first book I have on deck. And the second book is a novella. It's called What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Now, T. Kingfisher I've not read any books of as well. So I'm really excited to explore some new authors this month. I think that's kind of I've not gotten to do that really in most months, because it's always like my mainstay authors and maybe one author. But I feel like this month, it's going to be almost all new authors. So that's kind of interesting and a different way to kind of read books. So I'm excited about that. They're much shorter as well. So I'm leaving the links in the description as well if you want to check any of these out as well. But I think I should be able to, given, my reading pace lately and kind of how I've been structuring, I've been trying to wake up earlier to read and have dedicated time away from the phone to read. So given that, I wouldn't be surprised if I got through both of these this week, and comfortably so. So let's see how it goes. But you can hold me accountable. You can be my accountability buddy, and I will be yours as well, always. So that's kind of what I have planned for reading next week. Now, let's talk a little bit about the channel and kind of channel growth or decline, or some new segments on the channel and that kind of a thing in this particular part of the video that I always like to do every week, because I always like to keep you apprised. As I always say, I'm the steward of the channel, but it's your channel as much as mine. So we should all know kind of how the channel's doing and how the community is growing. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about a new segment that I added on to this channel. And I'm going to be doing this every month or so, maybe every couple weeks, depends on how fast this particular news starts flowing. But it's a new segment called Adaptation News. So basically the impetus of this is, I've seen Daniel Green's channel. I love his fantasy news segment. I've seen Patrick Leo's channel. I absolutely love the way he talks about fantasy books and the updates of the Kickstarter editions and things like that. What I had noticed in these particular videos is there's a very small segment dedicated to adaptations. And I watch those pretty frequently because it's really fun to know what's going on. But then I thought, it'd be really fun to do a whole dedicated video once a month or twice a month, talking about all the adaptations and where they are in various stages of development, because I happen to work in that space and I have access to kind of industry trade publications, and I have lots of conversations with people, and things that are not under NDA, of course, or like things that I'm allowed to reveal, or that, I'm on IMDb Pro all the time. I see people get added, cast and crew to different projects, or projects changing from like in development to pre-production to production. And so I'm privy to that information sometimes faster than an article can come out. So I want to be able to give that to you because, of course, we love books, we love reading, but sometimes it's nice to know, hey, how are these going to be adapted for the big or small screen? So that was the impetus of that. Definitely check out that video if you are interested, because, I want to keep making this a source of news for you all too. So you can keep apprised on your favorite series and kind of where they're going. So that's one of the things. The second thing I wanted to mention is the read-along progress. So for those of you who don't know, I've been kind of planning a 2025 read-along on this channel. And I was trying to choose between a few long-running series, some that are complete, some that are about to be complete, and kind of figure out a way we could all read something together as a channel. But I didn't want to decide it for myself because obviously, like, you know better than I. It's your channel as much as mine. So I figured I put out a poll on my community post, and it's still up there actually. I'm linking it down below so you can check it out as well. And it's on my community post at the very top, so you can check that out. And you can vote on your favorite series. So there's 4 series up there. And actually, as of this taping, it's very close between 2. So there's Malazan Book of the Fallen, and that's at 35%, I think, of the votes right now. And the Matthew Corbett series by Robert McCammon is kind of a historical fiction series taking place in like the 1700s. And that one has 32% of the vote. So those are 2 that are in the lead right now. And, but we have the other series, The Bound and the Broken by Ryan Cahill and The Wars of Light and Shadow by Jenny Wirtz, that are also fantastic series. So definitely check out that poll and make sure you vote, because I'm going to be closing that down October 31st. So I want to give you guys plenty of time so we can kind of pick the ones that you really want to read. And then I'm going to kind of start building out a schedule for those in the coming couple of months so we can hit the ground running January 1st with a brand new series altogether. So very excited about that. So also, as I mentioned, kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, I ended up doing a spooky seasons read, my definitive list of all the books I want to tackle this month in October. And so I'm linking that also up here so you can check that out. And there's a detailed description of every single kind of book that I wanted to read. Now, there's like 9 books on there, so obviously I'm not going to get through all of them. But I'm definitely going to have fun trying. And some of these are much shorter. They're faster paced than a dense fantasy. So it's very possible I could get through at least a good majority of them and enjoy the ride. Because I always say it's like not good to rush for no reason. Enjoy the ride, So as long as I'm enjoying, that's the pace that I'm comfortable with going as well. So that's kind of my thought on that. But let's talk about this coming week. So by the time this particular video is up, I will have a brand new Discord channel. So I'm really excited about this because it's a way to kind of keep track of what we're all reading, have discussions that are off the channel, and be able to kind of keep each other apprised. And I'm going to be popping on there quite frequently so that I can engage in real-time discussions with you, because, what I found is, like, I always mention I want to make this a dialogue for, with you all. And with comments, it's always like a few hours delay. And it would be so nice to be able to have like real-time conversations with you all, Maybe I can do kind of like a little kind of voice segment where we all kind of get on a call together sometimes and things like that. But I have kind of a bunch of different categories that are separated by author. There's a whole channel read-along section. There is also kind of a special section that I'm going to have locked for my patrons when I launch a Patreon channel. More on that coming soon in the next weekly update. Things like that. So if you want to join, definitely check it out. It's free to join. You're all free to, you're all welcome to join. And of course, the more the merrier. So please come by and say hi if you'd like to. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the upcoming videos that I have planned for the channel in the coming week. So I'm going to change up the video release schedule this week for a very special reason. So on Wednesday, October 3rd, Salem's Lot, the adaptation by James Wan and WB and New Line Cinema is going to be out on HBO Max. So very excited for that one. We weren't sure. It was a little touch and go if it was ever going to get released. And now it's finally going to be out. So I want to do kind of a dedicated review of that. That will come out the next day on Thursday, October 4th. And it will be kind of a comparison video talking about the new adaptation. How does it compare to the book? And what were the kind of strengths and weaknesses of that adaptation? So you could decide for yourself if you want kind of a non-spoiler take on how it works as an adaptation, and then also as a piece of art that stands on its own. So if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. On Thursday, I'm going to release it as I always do, videos. On the weekdays I release at 2:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So wherever you are in the world, hopefully that will reach you at a decent time. And then the second video I want to do is actually on Tuesday, October 2nd. I want to talk about the scariest Stephen King books, because what I was thinking about is, like, Stephen King is one of the most versatile authors, and he's my favorite author, right? He writes drama, he writes family dynamics, he writes coming of age stories, he writes horror, he writes science fiction, he writes like all sorts of different types, historical fiction. And I want to kind of go over my favorite scariest Stephen King novels. Now, I've read about like 48 of his books, so I feel like I'm pretty apprised at kind of like knowing which are his scariest books. So there's some you'll expect on this list, there's some that you may not necessarily expect on this list. And I'm actually going to include individual novellas as well, because I feel like short stories, they're a little too short to include on here, but the novellas are long enough that you could kind of include on here. So that is the other video that's planned. Now, in terms of the channel growth and stuff like that this week, it was a lot of down arrows, unfortunately. I'm not sure what it is, but, I was talking to a friend of mine, Zach, who is an amazing filmmaker and everything, and he had also mentioned that he had trouble finding my channel when he was doing a search on it on YouTube. So I don't know if it's like an algorithm glitch or what have you, but for me, I've always wanted to do it for the community, for the books, and for being able to create something together, So for me, I'm not too worried. I'm just going to keep making videos, try to improve with every video. And that leads me to my next point. If you have anything that you think that could make this channel better, I always love to hear it, so leave it in the comments as well. The other segment I wanted to talk about is the music front. So this week has been pretty gangbusters. I've been kind of meeting with people about potential projects. I'm about to start a song for an election campaign, actually, which is kind of interesting, new for me. I'm doing a Diwali kind of Indian Festival of Lights campaign song right now. So it's been more songs than scores, which is interesting. And I will be probably continuing on some TV show stuff the following week. And I'm doing some pitches on some adaptations as well. So more on that if things kind of move forward. But we'll see how it all goes. Never know in this industry, and especially during this time. So I think I had mentioned to you a little earlier that I had, plan this channel read along and things like that, and I am leaving that video right here so that you could check it out for yourself and kind of get more sense on each series and why each one of them would be a potential great pick for 2025 to read along. So let me know what you think in the comments. Check out that video if you haven't already. It really helps a lot with kind of helping us pick the right book series for next year. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. Please be good to yourselves. Please be good to each other. I'll see you next time. Take care.